Welcome to the Journey to Wholeness, a podcast by I See My Baby Incorporated. Here, we dive deep into powerful stories of those who have overcome life's greatest challenges, stories of resilience, healing, and renewed faith. I'm Alicia Hurt, your host, and each week we'll speak to individuals who have transformed struggles with infertility, battles with depression, and crisis of faith into profound growth and purpose. Hello there, everyone. It's Alicia Hurt here, your servant leader, and I am here for another episode of the Journey to Wholeness. I have another special guest here today, and I'm just going to hand it right over to her just to tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to this journey.
Oh, awesome. I thank you so much for having me on. My name is Dina, and what brought me to this journey? I think I was born. I'm a human. That is our journey, right? As humans, we are here to achieve wholeness, I think. Honestly. So, and I wasn't unfortunately necessarily born into it. I was born into a very broken family, and broken father. He had a broken family. My mother had a broken family. Generations upon generations of just depression and bipolar and just narcissistic and codependency and alcoholism and all of the stuff, right? And so I found myself needing to have something else besides what I knew, right? When I was 27, I attempted suicide because I was so broken. Like I was just like, I didn't know who I was, didn't know what I wanted. I had 2 children at the time. I was married and was just lost. And like I said, just feeling disconnected and broken. I don't know how much further you want me to go into this, but I'll start there.
So I heard you talk about just having so many different traumatic events and at an early age. How was that growing up?
Well, I grew up in a very violent household. My dad was an alcoholic and violent, and so I learned survival. That's all I learned was survival, is how to survive an abusive, violent household, right? And I did it. I have 4 brothers and sisters, and both my parents have passed now. And actually, my mom and dad stayed together for 40 years when he died, and then she lived another 15 or 16 years after that. But I didn't realize it, and you don't realize it as a child. You just don't realize it. This is your normal, right? Yeah. I remember at about 16, I got in trouble for sneaking out. I got caught sneaking out, and I got beaten pretty good over that. And one of the things that came to me like as a strong belief that just like anchored into my being without me even realizing it was, nobody loves you, nobody cares about you, nobody's going to help you. And that became my truth for the next decade, that was true, is that I was on my own. And I have to say, even now that I say that out loud, that became my truth for a decade, as if it's not still part of my truth. Like I'm like sitting here going, Dina, you still have some work to do around this. Because I sense a really strong feeling of drive for independence that still probably has a little bit of that rooted in there, is that I have to do it myself. And I think that was the big lesson that I learned this last year. Believe it or not, I fell in June and broke my kneecap, shattered my kneecap. And in shattering my kneecap, I couldn't hardly walk. I mean, I certainly couldn't walk without help, right? Because I had a completely shattered kneecap. And still, it's fully healed now, but still now in rehab, making it work all the way. But part of that lesson in that was learning that I could be supported, and really starting to, it's interesting because I'm not, this is like so on real right now, right? No, there's no prep at all because it's coming to me as I'm talking to you. This idea of that surrender to really trusting that I could be supported. I could be
Yeah.
supported by the universe. I could be supported by a loving God. I could be supported by a loving creator, that I don't have to do it on my own. So I'm just like,
Right.
I'm like feeling that right now, really strong hitting me as I'm talking to you. So sorry.
Well, amen. Amen. That's what this show is about. So I've written down some notes. You talked about survival early on, right? But then you
Mm-hmm.
hit on, I still have work to do. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay. So I'm thinking, well, my follow-up question needs to be, well, what does survival look like? And then you hit me with, well, I still have work to do. So I'm wondering what's to continue on. And then that balance with help, right? I feel like all of
Yeah.
them connect, but I want to hear from you those points of survival. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's really interesting because, like I said, it's literally coming. This is not something I've been contemplating. I've not really thought about this. It's just like it's coming to me as we have this conversation. So, so
That's
forgive me
good.
if it seems
Yay.
scattered. So, forgive me if it seems scattered. But this idea of survival, and I feel like I've kind of like lived my entire life in this survival mode without even necessarily realizing it, because believe me, I have done a lot of work, right? I've done a
Yeah.
ton of work to release the trauma from my childhood. I've done a ton of work releasing traumas from early marriage, releasing, just I've done a ton of work. But at the same time, like I said, even when I fell and broke my knee, I realized falling and breaking my knee, I realized that was like a metaphorical expression of my body saying, hey, girl, it is time to slow down, stop. You need to feel supported before you move forward. Before you feel like you can
Right.
continue to making steps and progress forward, you need to actually
Right.
heal some of these things. And I'm like, wow, I thought I did that. But it's like an onion, there's layers. And there's
Yeah.
always new layers that are coming, even, like I said, even this very moment. I'm like, oh, there's another layer of noticing. I'm noticing a fear and an anxiety a little bit coming up in my gut of really trusting in that absolute surrender of my life to a loving creator, a loving universe, something that is fully supporting me. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, I haven't I haven't felt this yet. So it's crazy.
Well, amen.
Did that
Amen
help?
to that. So it's rolling right on. Like I said, I felt like it was a connection. So the other part to my question is the balance with help. Because like as a mother of four, you want your kids to tie their shoe, you want them to try to open up a bottle, you want them to try to open doors, do things independently, but then they're like, no, I need help. So how do you strike that balance? Of course, I'm using a child as an analogy, but
Yeah.
how do you strike that balance for those people that are saying, I've always been independent, I don't need to ask for help, or those that are like, well, I always need help? Like, how do you strike a balance?
Wow. What a profound question. I told you before we got on, I'm at my daughter's house with my granddaughters, and
Right.
they are 3, 3, and 6. And so talk about independent, crazily
Right.
independent, especially the 3-year-old. She's going to do it on her own. And it's amazing for me to sit back and watch my daughter and her husband handle it versus the way I handled it, right? So I say all the time that my kids were casualties of my unconscious beliefs, right? My kids were casualties of my unconscious beliefs because I went through that period of time, I had my first daughter when I was 21, the day before I turned 21. And so hadn't fully come to grips with anything, which is, I'm sure, why at 27 I attempted suicide. But I was just going through the motions. Now I'm a Gen Xer. So when the arcade games came out, you remember that driving game? You'd have the steering wheel and then the road would be behind you, right? And all you would do is you would try to swerve away from the wrecks or whatever, the obstacles, right? And all the while the road is just coming at you, right? It's just coming at you. All you got to do is try to steer out of the obstacles, right? Compared to now, like Grand Theft Auto, right? Where you can decide if you're going to go straight or turn left or turn right, get out, whatever, right? And so I kind of have that analogy to life. Like when my kids were younger, and even a lot of times now, I even find myself and find so many people, life is coming towards them. They're playing that old arcade game and they're just trying to steer away from the obstacles. Meanwhile, the road's just coming at them, right? And when you take control, when you take back the unconscious beliefs and you start to tap into that and see what's going on, now all of a sudden you actually become the player. You get to decide whether or not you're going to go right or left. I mean, there's still parameters within that game, right? Because we live in Matrix, right? So we still have some parameters, but you're doing that, right? So I think to answer your question, how do you balance between supporting your kids too much and not enough, right? And I think, like, again, a huge example this morning, like everyone got up late here. And so the preschooler needed to be out the door by 8:35, and it's 8 o'clock and they're just eating breakfast. And so she's not getting dressed or anything. And mom's like, come on, let's go get dressed, right? And she's like 10x independent at 3 years old. You do not tell that girl. And if you try to, it will be worse. Like she blocks it, right? And so she's sitting there playing with her zipper on her pajamas, just up and down, practicing her zipper. And instead of going and getting dressed. And I'm sitting there observing her, and I was like, this is a lesson in present moment awareness. And it's a lesson for me, because all of us are looking at the time and she could care less. She doesn't have time. She's got right now. She's got right now. And that's all that matters to her is right now. When she's done with her zipper thing, then she'll go get dressed and she'll be in that moment of getting dressed because there is no helping her. She's going to do it on her own. And then when she's done with that, then she'll move on to the next thing. And she doesn't have a timetable. We have the time straits. We have the time issues, right? So if I'm using that as a lesson, right? I'm assuming that God is bringing me this lesson. The universe is bringing me this lesson through the beautiful mirror of my granddaughter, right? I get to look at that and go, how do I need to be more present? I mean, we're in the beautiful holiday season, and so many of us are running around doing just like nonstop everything. And I forget, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the present moment very often. I'm always thinking about the next thing I have to do, or thinking about what I forgot or what I didn't get done yesterday. And then just always in the state of rush and hurry. So I want to I guess the answer to my question as a parent, how do you balance that? I would suggest as a parent trying to get into the present moment a little bit more often, because maybe what we need to be able to do is adopt that childhood look, right? That present moment that children bring to the table, right? And letting them figure out how to do it. My kids are all grown. My youngest is 26, right? And as a mom, I missed it. Like I was not there. I don't even remember most of it, right? I just, because I wasn't present. But I get to be present more with my granddaughters, and being present means that I'm not worried about the next 5 minutes, knowing that hardly anything really is a need to stress over.
And I like the point that you made about your children being a casualty. You were very transparent and vulnerable in saying that. And now that you're able to integrate with your grandchildren and you see how they parent and how you all coexist, like what role do you feel like that community supports you in your journey to wholeness?
Wow. Again, I think a lot of it's in observing, I'm profoundly proud of my daughters. They're such amazing mothers, in my opinion. I am like shook most of the time. I'm like, that is not me. I don't know how you do that. You didn't get that from me.
Oh.
They do such an amazing job of giving their kids that space to be human, to be independent, to make their own mistakes, to try. Right. And I'm just like, I mean, I'm only here for a couple of weeks, so it's just, this is not the normal living arrangements. However, I do live with my other daughter and her two daughters, who are 15 and 12. Sorry, the ages escape me. But we ended up and this was really interesting because, as grandparents, we ended up taking custody of my older two granddaughters in 2017 or so about 5-6 years ago. And everything in our relationship shifted, because I was no longer the grandma. Now I was the mom, for lack of better terms. My daughter and baby daddy basically were both struggling with drug addictions. And so my daughter she's clean now, 100% sober, living with us. And so it's a beautiful scenario in that regard. We had the ability to, rescue the kids from that environment, at a time when they needed it, and, kind of kept the kids safe until mom and dad got things straightened out. And, the mom has come back, and so I do find myself, I feel like I'm a much better grandmother than I am a mother, to be honest, completely honest, because I don't have that patience and that long suffering. The Bible says, right? Long suffering. I don't have that like my kids do. And I don't know if it was because of the way, the generations of what I went through, and then the way they were raised to get to that point where they're like, okay, I'm going to do things differently. And how, I don't know. I don't feel like I answered your question, but
you did. You answered it more than you ever can imagine. So just to unpack that transition, like you had to step into that mother role, and then with your past trauma, you had to ensure that didn't come back up, right? But I like how you said it was easier for you because you basically took the pressure off. Took the pressure off. You're like, I'm grandma, I'm going to step into this role temporarily. So in that, like, what are some of the significant challenges that you face? Like, did anything trigger you at any moment from your past when you had to step back into the role?
Well, interesting, because I don't know that I ever felt. It's interesting because that's work I do. I help people with their triggers, and it's so hard to recognize when you're triggered, right? What really triggered me was my mom dying. That was a massive trigger for me to get into that massive level of anger. And we were raising our grandkids at the time, and I don't know that I ever really fully stepped into that mom role because you just are coexisting almost. It feels like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like so sorry for young families. And I know that there's a transition and everybody's doing it the way, but everything is so hurried and there's so much pressure nowadays for everything. And you know, there's just so many limited, when you're working mom, so you're working full time, the kids are in school and daycare, and you're running home to make dinner and then go to dance, or you know, I dropped the ball on a lot of those things, the Girl Scouts and the dance and you know, all of the things, because I was just like overwhelmed with working and with my when we had custody of our grandkids, you know. So spending time together at night reading, right? One of the things I did do was every Friday night was girls' night out. And that was my grandma time. I'm like, I'm going to be grandma during this time. We're going to go out to eat. We're going to go shopping. We're going to go do the grandma thing. Because the rest of the time, I'm acting like a mom, right? And I can't say I'm not the mother that my daughter is. My daughter is a phenomenal mom. I think her going through the experiences that she went through with her drug abuse and being disconnected from her kids for 3 years really made her appreciate her kids in a level that I never did.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you find the strength during those moments of doubt or difficulty?
I have a really, 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 really strong prayer and meditation life. I have a really strong prayer life, really strong. So I've been getting up at 4:30 every morning for 20 some years, 30 years, you know. Because when I started on my spiritual journey after the suicide attempt, that was kind of when I learned that I needed to anchor into something deeper,
Right.
something higher, something more powerful to get strength from, you know, to ground myself. And so that certainly continued. I mean, it never stopped, but I shouldn't say it never stopped. There's been ebbs and flows to a degree. But that was a significant part. And that's probably the one thing I'm always offering my daughters is take some time. You've got to get up before the kids get up. You've got to have 30 minutes to yourself. You've got to give yourself something, right? Before you are answering to everybody else, you've got to gift yourself some space.
Yeah. Yeah. And what does that time look like? That 30 minutes or hour, what does that look like? What's a good practice?
Well, right. So for me, I'm looking at 2 to 3 hours, like, cause I'm strive in that place. Right. And I've been so lucky that since I broke my leg, I'm at home 6 to 8 hours a day while everybody else is at work and the kids are at school. I got lots of alone time now. Awesome. But, so for me, what it looks like, so let me break it down to a 20-minute. So if you have 20 minutes, if you just wake up 20 minutes earlier, before the dogs get up, before the alarm gets up, before the kids get up, before your husband gets up, before you have to do anything, give yourself 20 minutes. What you're going to do is you're going to get up and immediately, just 5 minutes, spend 5 minutes thinking about what you're grateful for. Write down a few things that you're grateful for, right? Because that helps you to anchor into the abundance in your life, helps you anchor into the things that are going right in your life, right? And sometimes that's hard. You can get into, because when you start focusing on all of life, it can be overwhelmingly depressing.
Yes.
Overwhelmingly frustrating. And so if you spend the first 5 minutes every day focused on what you're grateful for, even if it's like, I'm breathing right now, right? That means I have another day. That means, you know, I can see, I can walk, I can move, I can breathe. I can hear, I can talk. I'm so grateful that I can touch my kids and hug my kids. And there might be a time in your life when your teenager will not let you give them a freaking hug, let alone a high five, right? So at that moment, you can be like, I'm so grateful that my teenager's still alive.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of teenagers that take their lives, right? There are things that are constantly going right. And it's looking at all of the things that are going right in your life. So spend the first 5 minutes focused on gratitude. What are you grateful for? And then I would what?
Go ahead, keep going.
Oh, and then I was going to say,
keep going.
I was going to say the next 10 minutes, I would spend 10 minutes then. And if you, you might work up to the 10 minutes, but spend the next 10 minutes in stillness and quietness. Notice the thoughts that are running through your mind. Sit still. It's funny how when you try to sit still for 5 minutes, every part of your body will start itching. And you'll want to scratch it all, right? Every part, all of a sudden now you've got a neck ache and a backache. When you just sit still for 5 minutes, right? So it's a practice in stillness. And when you are able to start to, and one of the things that I like to do is bring awareness to your breath. Just start counting your breathing. Count in for 5, for 7, and out for 7 or 8, right? And just breathe out 2 seconds longer than you're breathing in. And just focus on your breathing. Give yourself 5 minutes to constantly pull yourself back to your breathing, because your thoughts are wandering constantly all day long. 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. Holy buckets. That's a lot of thoughts, right?
Yes.
And when you start to notice your thoughts in that morning time and you start to pull them back, take control of it, right? We're talking about now doing the Grand Theft Auto game instead of instead of the road coming at you constantly. You're taking 20 minutes to play the game. You're taking the 20 minutes and you're saying, nope, I'm going to control this. I'm going to choose whether or not I'm going to have that thought, right? And so pull yourself back to just the thought of your breath and bringing it back to the awareness of your breath. Work it up to 10 minutes. Don't start at 10 because you'll fail and then you'll be like, I'm not going to do this. It's too hard, right? So work your way up, even if it's a minute or two at first, right? Work your way up to 10 minutes, sitting in stillness and silence. Notice the thoughts, and then watch what'll happen is during the day, you'll start to be aware of the thoughts that you're having. You'll start to be aware of when you call yourself stupid. Oh, well, that was stupid, right? And then the next 5 minutes, just spend, so you've got 20 minutes, 5 minutes of gratitude, 10 minutes of stillness, and then 5 minutes of reaffirming to yourself who you really are.
Yeah.
You are loved. You are amazing. You're awesome. You're fantastic. You're fabulous. You're kind and generous. Yeah. You're loving and you're lovable.
Yeah.
Thank you. You get to start. You write the game.
That's
right?
it.
You're putting the parameters into your game rather than just letting the road come to you. You're now got 20 minutes of starting to change that and transition that. Watch what happens with your relationship with your kids. When they get up now, you have some patience. You have some space because you've given yourself some space.
Yeah. And I like how you've given grace and flexibility in that time. You're not saying you need the hour, you need the 2, you need the 3. You're saying you just need time. So whatever that looks like for you, be intentional about it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if you're sitting in stillness for 2 minutes, give yourself 10 minutes in the morning, 2 or 3 minutes of gratitude, 2 or 3 minutes of stillness, and 2 or 3 minutes of affirming to yourself of who you really are.
Yeah. And how do you maintain your resilience in the face of ongoing challenges?
I think that's been a gift that I had because of my traumatic childhood. Right? Resilience was implanted in me because I needed to survive. So I would love to tell you how to maintain resilience, but I can't because it's like a fish that swims in water. They just swim in water. They don't know they're swimming in water. I'm just resilient because I haven't had a choice, right? Not only did I have it in my childhood life, but it has been one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. I've been married for 34 years, and we've gone through, like I said, we've gone through adultery, we've gone through depressions by both of us, massive depressions, suicide. My husband's lost both of his brothers, one by a hit and run and one by a suicide. We've gone through bankruptcy and foreclosure, and our kids were molested, and we prosecuted the guy and went to jail for a year. We've gone through, and then drug addiction with our daughter and running away. We've gone through the gamut. It's just like never ending, right? And so I just don't, like, I'd love to tell you how to be resilient, but I don't. You are resilient. If you've gone through all of the shit, just recognize, I'm sorry if I swear.
That's it. That's the word.
If you've gone through all the shit, if you've gone through all the shit and you're still alive, girl, you are resilient.
Yeah.
Humans are resilient, And so the one thing I think that's super important is to recognize that, again, it's about taking back control of the game. Really, you consider life as a game. You either got life coming at you and you're swerving out of the obstacles, right? The explosions in your life, or you take and start to write the rules of your game.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
That's 54 years of wisdom. You are the writer of the game.
Analyzing, like, wait a minute, Alicia. So is life, like, are you in control? Like, are you Grand Theft Autoing right now? Like, or is it just coming at you? Like, now I'm going to be envisioning exactly what you're saying. And then I have to be intentional about, okay, no, I'm doing some Grand Theft Auto right now. Like, not literally.
Right. Yes, no, exactly. But exactly.
I'm in control.
I'm in control. And recognize, like, when you take that responsibility, right, you've now become the co-creator of your life rather than being the victim, right? So, because we have two different mindsets. We're either a victim or we're a co-creator, period. And so a lot of times when shit's coming at you and everything's exploding around you, your husband's being a,
Yep.
Your husband's being a, all right? And your kids are out of control. And your boss is you didn't get a bonus, you didn't get a raise, you didn't get a promotion, your car breaks down, you got all of life happening at you, and you want to take that poor me victim mentality because it feels like that, like, ugh, right? Nothing ever goes right for me. Instead of being in that place where we're going to start complaining and mumbling and complaining and, grumbling about our life situations and the circumstances, right? Instead of being there, recognize life is coming at you to be a reflection of what's going on inside. You are always creating what's happening in your life, right? You're always co-creating it. So when I watched my granddaughter this morning struggling with her zipper, not struggling with her zipper, she was playing with it. And it was a reminder to me to be present with myself. Now, I've been here since last Friday or Saturday. And so I haven't had my morning meditation time because my grandkids are waking me up, and I'm like, wait. I would go to bed super late, so I can't get up super early. And I'm just like, okay, as soon as the kids were out the door, I was like, I need to go meditate.
Yep.
I need to give myself 20 minutes. I need to go meditate. I need to come inside.
Yeah.
Right. And especially because I had this podcast, but it wasn't even especially anything. It was a reminder that she was giving me, hey, grandma, just be present, just chill. Right. I haven't had my gratitude practice all week.
Yeah.
Right. And that you got to practice it. You can't just,
Absolutely.
if you got a piano sitting in your house and you never practice it, when it comes time to needing to play something, you're not going to be able to play it. Right. And that's the same thing with the gratitude practice. If you don't practice gratitude, like legitimately carve out a space to say, I either say it out loud, I am grateful for XYZ, or you're writing it down.
Right.
That's a practice. If you don't have a practice, when it comes to time to you needing to anchor into gratitude, like the car breaks down or the kids are late or something's going on, everybody's sick, whatever, you're not going to be able to access it. But if you have a regular practice, the first thing that you come to is gratitude. You'll start to see the shining lining in life rather than seeing the dark clouds.
Absolutely. So if folks are like, oh my God, I need to get in touch with her, I need some help, please let them know, like, your expertise, how they can get in touch with you. And then let us know one message that you hope listeners take away from your story.
Well, my website is www.justdina.com. So Just Dina, Dina.com. So my name is Dina, but it's just Dina. So
that's right. I like that.
So justdina.com is my website, and you can access a bunch of blogs, bunch of stuff there. And then my social media and stuff will be on the website if you want to get in touch there. One thing I'm a genius at, honestly, Alicia, is I'm a genius at looking at what's happening in your life right now and seeing the pattern that's creating this experience and helping you get to the root of that and change that belief system. It literally change it in an instant, and your life changes overnight. Like that one thing that you've been struggling with your entire life is no longer there. And now all of a sudden you're able to do things you could never do.
Yeah.
Like I have a friend that we worked through a big traumatic root of belief about not being good enough and not being valued. And it rooted all the way back to a time when she was 4 years old and she was molested by the neighbor. And she couldn't speak, she didn't have a voice. And like we removed that emotional trauma to that. And all of a sudden she started speaking up at work. She got a promotion. Her family life changed. She started losing weight without trying. Like everything changed, right? Because she was holding on to all of this, which is, so that's my root of genius, right? Is to really help people with trauma and get to the bottom of it. And what would I want people to really take away from this? And I think that is, you're worthy to have 20 minutes of space for yourself. You're worth it. You're valuable enough to give yourself some time. Give yourself the gift of time. Give yourself the gift of space because you are worth it.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that we don't do it a lot of times is because we just don't think we got to give to everybody, moms especially. We're constantly giving to everybody. But girl, you have to give to you.
Yeah.
Because if you have daughters, if you have sons, it doesn't matter. If you've got kids, even if you don't have kids, everyone around you is that you think you're giving to. If you're giving out of lack, you're giving lack. You've got to give out of your fullness of your own love, right? You've got to fill your own cup. And you are worth it.
That's
if
right.
you aren't doing it, you want to look at why you're not doing it.
Yeah.
How do you really feel about yourself if you don't think that you're worth 10 freaking minutes? Sorry, that might feel harsh, but you are worth 10 minutes.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so
Now,
much.
I say that in all love. I say that in all love and compassion because I know what it's like.
But they need it. You guys need it. I need it. I'm like, you're talking to me. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I pray this is not the last time that we talk. Below this broadcast, you will have all the links to reach out to our guests. And I look forward to you all having a phenomenal journey to wholeness. Take care. And again, thank you.